Good evening. My name is Julianne Lozano, and I serve as the SGA Vice President. On behalf of the Student Government Association, we'd like to welcome you to the 2023 final lecture. Each year, the Auburn student body elects a final lecture award recipient during its annual spring elections. The final lecture award was created to give all students an opportunity to participate in a teaching award given on behalf of the student body, recognizing faculty who have made an extraordinary contributions to Auburn University through classroom teaching and service to the university. The award recognizes one of Auburn's favorite professors and gives them the opportunity to present a short lecture on a topic of their choice. The event is meant to give students an opportunity to hear one final lecture from one of their favorite teacher before the semester ends and before they graduate. To be nominated and elected by students is one of the highest honors students can bestow upon a faculty member. This year, the student body elected Dr. Robert McConnell to give the final lecture. Dr. Robert McConnell teaches sociological theory, criminology, criminal justice, sociology of religion, and prison sociology in the College of Liberal Arts. Dr. McConnell is a tremendous researcher and instructor and an asset to the College of Liberal Arts and for Auburn University. Without further ado, allow me to introduce the Student and Government Association's 2023 Final Lecture Award winner, Dr. Robert McConnell.
Good evening, everyone. War Eagle. I was just telling Jamie that I didn't even know about this final lecture thing. I didn't know about it until I got an email from her asking if I would accept the nomination. I said, sure. And I am honored to be chosen to do this. This final lecture event is very significant. You see, historically, the lecture was the centerpiece of learning in the university. Now, unfortunately, the lecture is being disparaged. And there are forces trying to replace the lecture with all kinds of alternative pedagogies, some of which have silly names. I was told by someone from the center that my students must be bored because I simply lecture at them. I will not be defensive, but I will say that that kind of idea insults your intelligence. It discounts your ability to engage with the spoken word, to comprehend, and to think. So, in having this final lecture event, you are honoring something very important. A lecture can be an art form. It has been the primary mode of learning throughout the educational history of Western societies. You are here conserving something very significant. I am a proud alumnus of Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Has anyone ever heard of it? No. It's a state university in Western Pennsylvania. IUP is my undergraduate alma mater. I still remember the names of all of my undergraduate professors. So often I am a little bit hurt when I find out that my Auburn students don't know my name in the current semester. Many of my former professors have died. Marcus, McCreary, Whitmer, Goodrich, Olenfala, Wiesel. I don't look at the alumni magazine anymore because I got into the bad habit of turning first to the obituaries. I still remember all of their names after some 30 odd years. I got into this business because I wanted to be like them. These were people with expansive knowledge. These were people with great intelligence. They could answer questions with such precision. I wanted to be like them. They didn't do any educational tricks in the classroom. They didn't play any games. They communicated their knowledge. They communicated very effectively and well. I remember all of them. And honestly, as I look at what I do now and I look at what they did, I can't hold a candle. I have been teaching sociology here at Auburn University for close to 5 years. It's hard to believe this much time has gone by. Before this, I taught at a few other places. I teach sociology. I have many sections, large sections of introductory sociology. Studying society and teaching sociology is hard. That's because you really can't see a society in its entirety. All you get are these little glimpses of what's going on. You see a clue here and there. You can't really see society. Society must be imagined. In order to imagine society, we use different metaphors and different similes. So we say society is like a living biological body. It has all these parts that work together. Society may be an arena of conflict where different groups fight it out. Society may be like a game that people play. It may be a theater in which everyone's putting on an act. We talk about social structure. Society could be imagined as a building. There are higher floors and there are lower floors. And of course, you want to be on a higher floor. There are big rooms and there are small rooms. And of course, you want to be in a bigger room where you can have more stuff. there are also walls in this building, keeping people from getting from one place to the next. Well, if society is like a building, what kind of building is it? I would say society is like a prison. I have done research in prisons. I did research years ago in men's prisons, a maximum, a medium, and a minimum security joint. I taught in a women's prison for a few years. Society is like a prison. This was a metaphor first presented by Peter Berger in his classic Invitation to Sociology. The French philosopher Michel Foucault traced the history of prison in Western society. And he found that the prison is not a separate, isolated thing. The prison has affected everything else in modern societies. The techniques of containing people, observing people, disciplining people, and controlling people were all first developed and refined in the penitentiary. Now, those very same techniques of confinement, control, and discipline are used throughout the society. What is happening now in various other institutions, education, psychiatry, and others, are emanations of what began in the penitentiary. In education, we contain, we observe, we try to make you a certain way. Psychology and social work observes the individual to see if the individual is normal, and then tries to correct the individual so that the individual behaves in a more adapted fashion. All of these things are part of the carceral continuum that Foucault found running through all of modern society. Modern society itself has become much like the penitentiary. Sociology is a very dark discipline. It is very pessimistic. There's nothing happy about looking at the world and many of the things that are happening in it. Well, I have been poisoning young minds with sociology for a very long time. This evening, I give the antidote. I have shown you that society is like a prison. Tonight, I will show you how to escape. Sociology was an interesting idea when they first came out with it in the 19th century. The study of society was supposed to be modeled after natural science. The objective was to discover the laws or principles by which all societies operated at every time and place. Just as there are laws like the law of gravity in nature, there must be the same kinds of laws or principles governing the workings of every society. Well, sociology has failed to discover such laws. One of the big problems with that idea was what it assumed about the individual. It presented the individual as a dupe. People are just these unthinking automatons being pushed around by social forces in every which direction. People don't think. People don't decide. Even something as extreme and serious as suicide was assumed to be due to social forces. An individual was compelled to do such a thing. It wasn't a thinking decision. Well, there has been a turn in sociological theory over the past 50 years that now recognizes that human beings are knowledgeable. They do decide and they do make choices. This is what the British sociologist Anthony Giddens calls agency. Every member of society is knowledgeable about what is happening. And every individual within society has the power to choose. And that is regardless of whatever kinds of situations he or she may be in. So here we see an image of the individual as active and thinking. Well, this understanding of the person requires a very different explanation or description of social structure. Social structure is made up of the rules that people follow in daily life. If people are following the same rules day after day, everyone will be doing the same thing. And nothing will change. Yet, at the same time, the individual has the power to not only bend the rules, but to break the rules and do something different. Every member of society has the knowledge and power to do that. Giddens gives the example of some troublemakers in a British high school. He said, those boys understood the system better than anyone else. They knew the rules better than anyone else. They knew them so well that they could break the rules and be a major problem for the teacher. The conformist kids were not quite so conscious. Now, Giddens shows us the capacity of the agent within society. The problem remains, why don't more people bend the rules? Why don't people do things that may be deviations from the rules, but nonetheless are in their best interests? We find in this kind of theory that people remain on the same tracks for very long periods of time. The question is, why do not people make other choices which may better serve their own interests? To deny that one has a choice to do something different is what the French philosopher Jean Paul Sartre called bad faith. Bad faith is the denial of choice. Bad faith is the rejection of freedom. The ultimate bad faith cop out is I was only following orders. I could not do anything different. This is faith in that it is a belief. It's bad in that very often the person does bad things. It is bad in that this faith is mistaken. This is a denial of choice. This is a denial of freedom. I see bad faith and everything that limits a person's perceptions and choices as a problem of human intelligence. Human intelligence has become muddled and confused by a lot of the impressions that we get every day from society. This guy, Jagadish Vasudev, now simply called Sadhguru. He's a very interesting man. Someone should work on getting him to come here and speak. He spends most of his time at his yoga center in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, in the south of India. He has a center up in Tennessee. When he comes into the area, it would be interesting to have him come here and speak. Well, he writes of this problem. He says, the accumulative part of the mind is, to put it simply, just society's garbage bin. Every day, we are going around receiving all of these impressions. A lot of it's garbage, and it's muddling up our intelligence. It is restricting our intelligence. And he explains your ability to merely recycle the garbage you have picked up is what the mighty intellect has been reduced to. The challenge of human freedom is to free the human intellect from all of this muddle and all of these impressions. Sociology can be useful in doing that. There are, as I see it, three things, each named with a sociological concept, which really have restricted the human intellect and the individual's ability to choose. The first we call reification. That is simply regarding all of these systems in society as if they were things of nature. It is regarding all of these systems as if they were immutable. But in reality, all of these systems were simply invented by human beings, and as such, they really can be changed. But with reification, we see them again as things of nature. They are like rocks, they are like trees, they are just there and absolute. Not so. Karl Mannheim wrote of ideology. Well, an ideology is simply a system of beliefs. Those beliefs are seen as being absolute truth, and anything that does not conform to an ideology is immediately rejected as false. Such things are not even thought about if they are contrary to the ideology. And the ideology can be political, it could be religious, it could be a number of different things. So often, people act on the basis of ideologies rather than thinking and responding. And the third major thing that limits the individual's intellect is identity. When Peter Berger wrote about this problem, he wrote in terms of the roles that people play. A role is kind of like your social job description. You may be a student, you may be a teacher, you may be a police officer or a soldier. Well, these roles tell individuals how to behave. And very often, an individual's role gets deep down inside of him. It defines who he is as a person. That is very constraining. An individual cannot see himself acting outside of the confines of his role. A role can be imprisoning. A role becomes one's identity. I think in current times, the problem of identity has become even greater. You know, these days, everyone has to have some kind of special identity, don't you? Yeah, and there are all kind of identities you could choose from. Yeah, you need one. Years ago, I knew this young lady. Somehow she discovered that her grandmother had been born in Poland. Okay? Well, in her mind, that suddenly made her Polish. And everything that she said, everything that she did was an expression of her new Polish identity, just because her grandmother was born there. But you know, really, her parents did not have any kind of Polish ethnic culture. I don't know if she knew the difference between pierogies and cabbage rolls. Yet, for her, everything came out of this new Polish identity. 2 weeks after she discovered she was Polish, she thought she was John Paul II. An identity can be very confining. It could be very constraining. One's intellect becomes encrusted within that identity. The individual cannot see beyond it. Sociology can be useful in identifying all of these constraints on intellect and on choice. Once we can identify these things, we can break free of them. And then we are in a state of ecstasy. Now, I am not promoting any kind of alternative states of consciousness. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it. It might be a really fun trip, but no. Ecstasy simply means to stand outside, to stand apart. Then you have a clear vision of all of the choices which are available to you. Then, in a state of ecstasy, your intellect has become free. You are no longer constrained by all these crusts put on you by society. You can choose. You see, you do not have to do anything to exercise your intellect. Or I should say it this way, you do not have to do anything to develop an intellect. You were born with a human intellect. One must strip away all of the impressions that one has received from society. One must become ecstatic, and then your intellect can work. Then you can be creative. Then you can make choices. Sometimes graduate students will talk to me. They have gone on to other programs, and they will say, you know, I really don't like it here. I don't like this program. I say, okay, forget about the program. You're not a robot. You don't need to be programmed. You're a human being. And then I always ask them this. I don't have any answers, I just ask questions. I ask them this: can you take the junk that these idiots are giving you and creatively craft it into something that you want? Can you use this for yourself? That is intelligence. Now, I must tell you, this is not an exercise in positive thinking. I am not a positive person. No, I'm a sociologist, a pessimist. I see the world as it is, okay? It's not as bad as some people say, but I will tell you, it's getting ugly. And even more so, I see myself as I am. And that makes things even worse yet. This is not an exercise in positive thinking. You are not going to be able to positively manifest anything that you want. This is about freedom. In a state of ecstasy, you see that there have been strings that have been pulling you all along. Then you can cut those strings and finally become a real boy. A full-fledged, flesh and blood, full-time human being with intelligence. Society is still a prison. That doesn't change. What has changed is you have stepped out of it and you can see. You can see that there is a wall there. You know not to walk into that wall or you'll break your nose. You have the intelligence to know when to quit and change course. And in a state of ecstasy, you also be able to see that there's a door. You walk through that door. You walk out of the prison. You are ecstatic. You are free. War Eagle.
Thank you, Dr. McConnell, and thank you for all you do for Auburn students. We will take your words to heart as we continue to lead the student body. At this time, we'd like to present you with the 2020